All right, guys, welcome back to the First Team Fantasy Podcast. We're here again with our friend David
What up?
and Derek.
Yes, sir.
And we're going to start you guys off with the injury report today. We've got a couple important guys out. Austin Eckler's going to miss this week. Zay Jones, Odell Beckham Jr., Rashad Bateman, Treylon Burks also among people who will be missing. Saquon Barkley is doubtful, trending towards not playing. So if you have him in your lineup, I'd go ahead and make that switch now. Guys listed as questionable are Justice Hill, Baltimore running back, Debo, you know who that is, Marquise Brown, Miles Sanders, Deshaun Watson, Elijah Mitchell, Jimmy Garoppolo, Derek Carr, Jonathan Mingo, Tyler Higbee, and today just added to the list was David Njoku because he apparently burned his arm and face at a backyard fire pit at his house. He has tweeted hinting that he plans on playing, but we will see. And also news that just came in, totally unrelated to fantasy, but Chandler Jones has been released from the Raiders for all of the people wondering what was going on with that saga.
Good riddance.
And yes, I don't think too many Raider fans are upset about that. Guys I'd especially watch out for are Debo and Miles Sanders on the questionable list because they did not practice yesterday, which very much puts their playing in jeopardy. So if you have one of them in your starting spots, keep a very close eye on it.
Also,
And with that, we are going to. Oh, go ahead, David.
Oh, my bad. You got to remember too. Mike Williams is also out. That's obvious. And Austin Eckler's gonna miss this week also.
Yeah.
Yes, Austin Eckler will be out, and Mike Williams ACL will not allow him to play for the rest of the year. Moving on to the afternoon games for the Sunday slate, we have the Patriots at Dallas. And this one, the over-under is 44. Dallas is favored by 6 points. I'm not too sure how much offense we're really going to see in this one. The Patriots have a top-ranked defense. The Dallas Cowboys have a top-ranked defense. Dallas currently ranked third overall against the pass, giving up only 130.7 passing yards per game through these first 3 weeks. And the Patriots do not have much of a passing attack to do anything to that. So you're not going to see much from Patriots pass catchers in this one, in my opinion. The Cowboys defense is only allowing 6 yards per attempt, which to me puts a very possible spike in Rhamondre Stevenson targets on the board. That's generally the area that he excels in. So hopefully this is a Rhamondre week because it's not going to be a week for anybody else in the New England Patriots. Rhamondre is the only one I would consider starting. Moving on to the Cowboys side of the ball. Well, and I mean, the Dallas Cowboys gave up 200 yards rushing to the Arizona Cardinals. But I hate to say it, the Cardinals offense might be a little less one-dimensional than the Patriots right now.
Yeah.
The Patriots don't have anything to offer in the pass game. And as far as, Hunter Henry's been good, Zach Ertz has been good as well up to that point this year, which the Cowboys held him to 2 points, which is why I don't really like Hunter Henry this week either. But the Patriots defense should also give Dallas a lot of problems. Arizona was able to sack Dak twice last week and pick him off one time. And the Patriots have a much, much tougher defense than the Cardinals do. Matt Judon should have no trouble, getting to Dak. I mean, that was supposed to be a really good offensive line. The one guy that I'm really hopeful for in this one is Tony Pollard. We saw the Patriots give up a huge game to Raheem Mostert in week 2. And I'm hoping Pollard can replicate that. Other than that, their DB, Christian Gonzalez, has been locked down this year. We saw him do an insane job on Tyreek Hill. Actually picked off Tua on a pass that, pure athletic ability. This guy's great. He's going to give CeeDee Lamb fits. And the rest of the Patriots defense, in my opinion, the pass catchers from Dallas are hard starts for me this week, just because that Patriots defense has been so stout. But if you have to play Jake Ferguson, just because, the tight end landscape is what it is right now, he's been getting red zone targets, but the Patriots are allowing the 4th fewest yards to tight end right now. So I'd also keep that in mind if you plan on playing Jake Ferguson. Not too much more in this game.
Yeah. I mean, the Patriots, again, your only guy you're thinking about starting this week. I mean, Rhamondre, where you drafted him, you're probably rolling Rhamondre.
Yeah.
Other than that, the Patriots, I'm staying away from. Truthfully, after how Dallas performed last week, I think we're going to see a lot closer to how Dallas looked in the first 2 weeks than we did in this last week. I think the Patriots are going to struggle to score the ball. Their defense may get them in some good opportunities, and they score off that. But as for Mac Jones getting the ball at the 20-25 yard line and driving the field, I don't see it happening too much. Your Dallas.
Plus, you got to think they're missing Diggs last week, so they're probably adjusting more this week, and more ready for the game.
Well, yeah, when you place Trayvon Diggs with Deron Bland, there's going to be a noticeable change, and Deron Bland got torched by Hollywood.
Yeah,
absolutely. So, but there's nobody on. I mean, Kendrick Bourne.
Yeah, exactly.
I just don't see. I don't see it. I don't. I mean, maybe it's one of those ones, but I just genuinely don't. The Patriots don't offer any threat on, in the air to where Dallas. They're just gonna sell out on the run.
Yeah, and
that's what worries me.
Yeah, and Dallas has their must starts. Pollard and CD. It could be a rough week for CD, but obviously you're starting him. Dak is someone I would heavily think about and look at your other options. In the same with Jake Ferguson. With the tight end position being so volatile, you probably can find a more favorable matchup than Jake Ferguson against the Patriots. It seems like it's gonna be an ugly one. I think Dallas takes it decently comfortably as well.
Dallas is at home, coming off of a loss to the Cardinals. And like we said, the Patriots just do not have any threats on offense. I don't see this being too high scoring of a game. Also, don't see Dallas being able to move the ball extensively well. So probably whichever team makes fewer mistakes ends up winning this game.
Yeah, and that's going to segue us to our next game. The Cardinals traveling to Santa Clara, not San Francisco, to take on the Niners. Niners defense has looked how we expect the Niners defense to look. They are third against the run. So James Conner owners, that is very scary to see. But again, we did just see James Conner have a great game against the Cowboys when people thought the Cardinals weren't going to be able to generate anything on offense. If I have James Conner, I'm probably still starting him just because he's put up good week after good week. It's going to be tough to throw him on the bench. But it could be a very tough week for him, especially being a divisional game. Hollywood questionable with that thumb injury. If Hollywood plays, I'm rolling him. The Niners are 14th against the pass, and if they do go up early, which a lot of people probably expect, I expect the Cardinals to have to pass. I think Hollywood can end the game. If he finishes 5 or 6 catches, 50 or 60 yards, you're already having a solid week. If he happens to, get a touchdown, he can have a very good week. But those are the only two. I mean, Zach Ertz, you can think about it, but again, I think it's one of those where you can probably find a more favorable matchup.
Well, yeah. I mean, as far as Zach Ertz, I don't like. We saw what San Francisco did to Darren Waller, and we know they have the best linebacking core in the league. So I prefer never to start my tight ends against San Francisco because you're absolutely hoping for a touchdown, and I don't like having to do that. And that's just I don't like that. But you really got to watch Hollywood and his health in this one. If he doesn't go, in my opinion, that makes the Cardinals' offense much more one-dimensional. And the Niners probably will be able to sell out on the run a little bit more. And you have no choice but to start James Conner every week. He's purely a volume play. He gets all the touch. I mean, Keontae Ingram's been worked in a little bit, but he's even hurt right now.
Yeah, he might not play.
Yeah, it's James Conner. As long as he's healthy, he's a guy like David Montgomery. Goal line opportunities, all his. Everything, it's his backfield 100%. And that is not something that you can afford to bench the way running backs are looking right now.
Yeah, and the Niners side of the ball, it's a lot easier fantasy-wise to make the decisions. you're rolling McCaffrey. If Debo does play, you're rolling him. If he doesn't play,
yeah, you have to.
You're rolling Ayuk. If Debo plays, if he doesn't play, either way, you're rolling Ayuk. You're rolling Kittle. And I mean, those are your main guys. Brock Purdy, he's a guy, I mean, I think it's tough because the Cardinals are 21st against the pass, 26th against the rush. Their defense isn't good either way. This could be, or probably will be, another monster McCaffrey week, and we're probably actually going to see Eli Mitchell get his fair share of carries as well in this game, only because I see the Niners going up and, preserving McCaffrey a little bit to last through the season. But, I mean, the Niners side of the ball is just obvious starts. You have your superstars there. You're starting them every week. I mean, there's not much more to say on that.
Kittle's a smash start this week. The Cardinals are historically terrible against tight ends, and Kittle always does well against the Cardinals. So I mean, you have no choice but to start him every week. Yeah, him and Evan Ingram, in my opinion, it's you can't go wrong. But yeah, as far as Debo, if he does play, I have a feeling he'll be on somewhat of a snap count just due to the fact he missed Wednesday, Thursday, Friday practice. Or I don't know if he missed all the practices, but he definitely missed Friday. And a lot of times, if you miss the Friday practice before a Sunday game, it's not a very good indication that you're going to be playing. So I believe he'd be on somewhat of a snap count. And because it's not just the ribs, he has a knee injury too. And and if they happen to go up early or whatever the case may be, Debo's not a guy that they want to risk his health at the beginning of October.
Yeah.
Because, he's a guy that if they're playing late December, late January, that's when they need Debo. So watch for him to be on a snap count if he plays.
Yeah, no, 100%. It like you said, it could be one of those things. Juwan Jennings is doubtful with his shin injury. So, I mean,
bad spot start.
No.
If Debo and Juwan Jennings miss, Ronnie Bell will be the number 2 receiver in that offense. And
I just feel like that means Ayuk would eat more.
He will.
Yeah,
he absolutely will.
Ayuk and Kittle will definitely eat more, but we did see, he got an end zone target and a touchdown last week, so he's already got some rapport with Brock Purdy, and if he's the number 2 guy out there, his targets will increase.
Yeah.
Not rushing to start him, but if you're in a sticky situation and, you got guys hurt, I don't hate it.
Yeah.
That's if Debo and Jennings both miss.
No, exactly. It's looking like Jennings is going to miss. Debo, we're going to have to wait. That seems like it's going to end up being a game time decision.
Game time.
And that takes us to our other afternoon game, which is the Chiefs traveling to New York and taking on the Jets. I'm going to start with the Jets because it is ugly. Zach Wilson, please be benched. I don't care who they throw out there. If it's whatever backup or whatever free agent they decide to sign, if they struggle, it's going to be better than what we see Zach Wilson doing out there. Breece Hall owners, it's tough. You assume they're going to start ramping him up because Zach Wilson just cannot move the ball through the air. He is a sketchy start. The Chiefs' defense has actually been very good this season. 6th against the pass and 11th against the rush. If you're a Breece Hall owner, I mean, if you want to roll the dice on him again, hoping he gets ramped up, hoping he breaks out a big play, go ahead and do so. But if you have a more viable option, I would wait until he actually has that game. Because
just being completely honest on Breece Hall, I mean, this week against the Chiefs, I absolutely hate it. If, in my honest opinion, if there's a guy if Miles Sanders doesn't play and Chuba Hubbard's on the waiver wire,
I'd rather roll him. His pass catching ability.
Lean that direction. I'd almost rather lean the Jaylen Warren direction. I'd obviously staying away from Josh Kelly at this point. That's not going to do you any good.
No.
But Roschon Johnson, honestly, against the Denver I just don't see this going well for Breece Hall. If you have the opportunity to bench him, I wouldn't start Justice Hill over him this week against the Browns defense, but it's still just not a good look.
No, and they only have one pass catcher that, I would start Garrett Wilson. Zach Wilson's looked terrible. Garrett Wilson's still getting a decent amount of targets. His talent alone is allowing him to make some plays and be a viable fantasy player. It really sucks for the people, he's getting drafted second round, if not early third, and he's putting up bottom tier 2 wide receiver 3 numbers only because he has Zach Wilson in comparison to Rodgers. I'm starting Garrett Wilson just off his talent alone, but I mean, there's no one else on the Jets that I'd even consider starting.
I mean, if you got to start a Jet this week, buckle in and close your eyes.
Yeah, exactly. And
all I could tell you.
And on the other side of the ball, you know exactly who you're starting. You're starting Patty. You're starting Travis Kelce. Shout out Taylor Swift. Pacheco. Had to, man. Had to shout out. Come on, dude. He's going to play better. Now he's got Taylor Swift, man. He's got to perform even more. Just let it ride.
Something wrong with you Travis Kelce owners.
The Jets defense is 23rd against the rush. I like Pacheco this week. I think Pacheco has a solid week because, again, it can be one of those games where the Chiefs go up early and they're not having to just continuously pass the ball, so you may see some Pacheco volume. If you're in a deeper league and you're in a really tough spot, I mean, this one's going to sound crazy saying it. Would you start...
Rashee Rice?
No, yes, I like Rashee Rice. I was going to say, would you consider starting McKinnon over Breece or no? It's disgusting.
It's
the fact you have to think about that
going
is
to
disgusting.
Have goal line opportunities, but I mean the crazy thing is they both almost have the same amount of volatility right now. And
yeah,
it's crazy to say. It's like I'm 100% starting Pacheco over Breece. That's not even a question right now.
Yeah.
But damn.
Yeah. So in that wide receiver room, it's so hit or miss on who has the good week. I think Rashee Rice, like you said, he is kind of separating himself at least as like the most consistent receiver there. But outside of him, when you look at Valdez-Scantling, Tony, Justin Watson,
Watson.
I mean, you can just keep naming them. There's so many of them that are all like just below average, and you're just not starting on any of them. So I mean, it's simple.
It's just crazy because they all have Patty, so you would think.
Yeah, and Patty's only.
And that's the thing about it. It's like you can't count on any of these guys. Like Travis Kelce will get like damn near 10 targets a game or some shit. Yep. And then Noah Gray's going to get 2 catches. MVS is going to get a catch. Rashi's going to get 3 catches. Kadarius Toney's going to get a catch. You can't. It's like, honestly, closing your eyes and throwing a dart and hope you hit the damn board. Mm-hmm. Most of the time, you're not even going to hit the board. And you're going to get 0 points, like a 0.9 week from Kadarius Toney. So it's like that. No.
I will say, if you don't have one of the top defenses in the league, I kind of like a Chiefs defense play this week. I don't absolutely hate it.
I like the Chiefs.
Yeah,
I like the Chiefs.
I think it would be a safe bet.
Yeah, they're going to get to Zach Wilson. Yeah, they're definitely going to get to him. But I mean, that's all I had for that game, unless one of you guys had something else to add. Otherwise, we'll turn it over to David for the Sunday night game.
I want to talk about that game as little as possible.
So yeah, I mean, with the Raiders-Chargers game, I mean, they're both obviously it's a rival game. They're coming into it both 1-2. The Chargers coming off, a very close win against the Vikings. And like we said earlier, Mike Williams is out, obviously, with the ACL, and Austin Eckler. They rested him again for another week. Mm-hmm. And I got to say, another thing with, we'll start with the Chargers, I guess. Everyone's got the question who to start, either Joshua Palmer or Quentin Johnson. That's a huge question. Mm-hmm. People are probably asking. For Palmer last week, just alone, he got 7 targets, 4 receptions. He did get a touchdown. With 66 yards. So who knows? I mean, do you guys have any opinions on those two? Like who would you guys go with, or who?
I know Schiff's opinion.
Yeah, I'm a lot more comfortable these first couple weeks, at least. Like we said in one of the past videos, until Quentin Johnston can or will establish himself as the wide receiver 2 in that room, you're rolling Palmer.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I feel like now with Mike Williams, now that he is out, unfortunate for them, now I think is his time to shine a little bit more. And I think as the weeks come along, we'll get to see that. But for now, I would say Joshua Palmer is a safer start.
Yeah, rest of season, I do like Quentin Johnston.
Yeah, he is looking like the safer start. And then obviously we can't forget about Keenan Allen. I mean, he's still a huge, obvious start.
Oh, yeah.
He's coming off a huge game last week, 20 targets, 18 receptions, 215 yards.
That's unbelievable.
Yeah, it's crazy. No touchdown, but that's still crazy, yeah.
No, he threw for one.
Yeah,
he threw for
one. That's right.
He threw for one.
I did forget about that. He did throw for a touchdown.
Mm-hmm.
So obviously that's an obvious start. And then we got to remember about the running backs on that team. I mean, obviously with Eckler.
No, we don't.
No, Joshua Kelly.
You could forget about that.
We know he's not really a question. I mean, last week, I mean, he had 11 attempts for 12 yards. I mean, what are you going to do with that?
Throw him to the waivers.
He's averaging barely a yard a carry. So, if you want to start him, you must be really desperate if you got to start him this week. Yeah. Even though they are playing the Raiders, I mean, the Raiders, they did hold the Steelers to under 3.5 on the run. So
solid.
That's up to you. I mean, if you want to start him,
you could say, oh, it was Najee, and Najee looks slow.
Yeah.
Okay, has Josh Kelly looked any better in the last 2 weeks? He had a great matchup last week.
No, and he hasn't scored. He hasn't scored since week 1, and he's played 70% of the snaps. So
we are done with Josh Kelly. Done with him. If he does good this week on the waivers or on the bench, great.
Sell high.
I don't care.
Sell high while you can, but that's probably not even possible because Eckler's going to be back by week 6. So
drop it like it's hot, and it's not even hot.
And then on the Raiders side, we got to talk about the defense. I mean, Max Crosby was out. He did not practice. So if he is questionable,
no,
that could be bad for the Raiders.
Tyree Wilson time.
Yeah, they did. They gave up 230 yards to Kenny Pickett last week, so we gotta be careful with that. We know Herbert is a rushing quarterback, so we gotta be careful with that.
Mm-hmm.
He did throw for 405 yards last week, so that's kind of crazy. Let's see.
Have a bottle on hand if you're a Raiders fan.
Yeah, Justin Herbert carves us up.
It could be an interesting game. But I mean, obviously the Chargers have their issues on defense too. I mean, they allowed Jay Jett for 149 yards for, he got a TD. And, for the Raiders side, you got to look, they got Devontae Adams. I mean, he got 20 targets last week. Mm-hmm. He had a huge game last week against the Steelers. So, this is going to be, I feel like, a very close game. I'm very interested to see how Jimmy G does. Yeah, if Jimmy G does play.
If Hoyer plays,
I mean, he's not looking good right now. I mean, he obviously leads the NFL with 6 interceptions right now, which is ridiculous.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously you could tell Raider fan, so I'm not liking it.
But he's been able to get Jacoby and Devontae the ball.
Yeah, Jacoby,
and that's it.
Yeah, Jacoby and Devontae. That's it. I mean, 20. I mean, together they got 20. About 40 receptions together. So it's ridiculous. And then on the defense side, and we got to be careful with Jimmy G. They did get the Chargers did get 4 sacks last week against the Vikings. So we gotta hopefully stop that. Their rush defense is not that good. They did allow 4.5 yards per carry with Madison in the backfield. And you got to look on the Raiders side. They got to, I would say, not just saying because I'm a fan, but I would think you guys would agree, Josh Jacobs is obviously a better running back than Madison.
He should be a top running back.
So it's going to be interesting to see how he plays because obviously Josh Jacobs has not been, I would say, not Josh Jacobs this year yet that we're used to seeing. He's got 3.5 yards per carry, just about, a little over. 62 yards last week. I mean, with 17 attempts. I mean, it's not looking good for him. But hopefully he has a bounce back game. I mean, unless you guys got anything to add, I mean, that's about all I got for this game.
Yeah, I mean, just really quick, Chargers obviously. Keenan, Josh Palmer, I'm starting. Herbert, obviously starting. Raiders side of the ball. If Jimmy G plays, you're starting Devontae and Jacoby Myers. If he doesn't play, you're starting Devontae and Jacoby Myers and hoping that it's Aiden O'Connell and not Brian Hoyer. It's probably going to be Brian Hoyer, at least to start the game.
Brian Hoyer.
Yeah. But even so...
I mean, we saw when Jimmy G went out of that game, they brought in
Brian Hoyer.
We know their plan. I know what you guys are hoping for, but we've seen it already.
Yeah. And Josh Jacobs,
if it is... as that is.
The player that benefits the most, if it is Brian Hoyer, is probably Josh Jacobs, because you'd assume that run volume is just going to skyrocket even more. So be on the lookout for that, Josh Jacobs owners. But I mean, that's really all I had. It's going to be ugly for the Raiders defense. Just hope we can score enough points to keep up.
And another thing to add too is Khalil Mack is still sackless too, so that would be interesting to see if he gets involved this week against the Raiders. Especially.
I hope not.
Fun. But for me, I really think that if Brian Hoyer is going to be the starter, I'm trying to pivot away from Jacoby Myers this week, just because the big volume games we've seen were with Jimmy G. It kind of goes for the same thing. Like, if Jameis plays for the Saints, I'm less inclined to play Alvin Kamara, because we've only, I think Alvin's highest game with, Jameis like 8 points. It's just one of those things, and it's not that Jacoby hasn't done good with Hoyer. It's just I don't know, and he's not the number one, so he's not going to generate the wide receiver one targets. Devontae's safe just because regardless, it's along the same lines of people still starting Garrett Wilson, even with Zach Wilson as quarterback. He's the number one target there. You're not starting any other guys. And to me, it kind of becomes the same thing, just because I don't know what Brian Hoyer is still capable of. I don't know why Brian Hoyer is still in the National Football League. And yeah.
Don't disrespect our boy Brian Hoyer like that, first off. I'm kidding.
That's Josh McDaniels' boy, Brian Hoyer.
Yeah, that's
not
very
your boy.
true.
That's McDaniels'
that's
boy.
very true.
But yeah, and then Quentin Johnston, you probably don't have the opportunity to, because of, he probably's gone off the waivers. But if he is still there, he's probably one of the most valuable stashes for the rest of the year.
Yeah, especially, he's going to be, I think he's going to get way more involved over the...
Yeah, they have to involve him.
Yeah,
he'll
first
have
round,
to be.
This is what they drafted him for.
Yeah.
Genuinely, because... I mean, as much as you hate to say it, you haven't really seen a full healthy year out of Keenan and Mike Williams at the same time. So you go and get a receiver in the first round.
Keenan's having a crazy year though right now.
Yeah, but if he happens to miss time, that's when Josh Palmer and Quentin Johnston are going to go insane.
Last year, when both of them missed time, it was Josh Palmer and DeAndre Carter. So it was Justin Herbert had nobody to throw the ball to. So they fixed that issue this year. And then that leads into our final game, the Monday night game. Seahawks are going to New York to take on the Giants. The over-under is at 47 points, so I think this should be a decently high-scoring game. Seahawks are favored by 2 points. We'll see how it goes, honestly. Neither of these defenses really have shown anything to be afraid of. The Giants just gave up 20.3 points to Brock Purdy without Ayuk, and 25.2 points to Josh Dobbs in the last 2 weeks. Going up against Geno Smith this week with a full arsenal of wide receivers. I said in the last video, Geno is my quarterback start of the week, must start for me. And you could say Daniel Jones is the same, because on the other side of the ball, in the last 2 weeks, Seahawks gave up 23.92 points to Goff and 23.54 points to Andy Dalton. So there is nothing I'm afraid of on either side, either defense. If you want to run Matt Breida this week, because of if you have Saquon and
don't do it,
you don't really have much else. This is one that I don't hate it that much, just because. But we saw that if they get to the goal line, he's the one that's going to get the carries, and they should have more opportunity this week against a much worse defense.
Yeah.
So I do like But one thing I will say, though, I don't like any of the Giants pass catchers aside from Darren Waller.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not starting Paris Campbell, I guess, is a fringe like PPR flex if you're absolutely desperate, just because he gets all of those low ADOT targets. I still don't like him. I'm, I guess waiting to see on Wanda. It's just kind of like a worse version of the Chiefs. You have the tight end who's the primary target, and then you have a bunch of Jags there. They're just a guy. They haven't really done anything to separate themselves. They got Sterling Shepard, Darius Slayton, Paris Campbell. Hell, who else did they get? Or they have Wan'Dale Robinson. And none of these guys, to me, stand out more than the other.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not really excited to start any of them. On the other side of the ball, though, starting Geno, starting Ken, starting DK, starting Tyler Lockett. JSN
Loving Ken this week. Loving Ken.
Love Ken Walker this week. Great matchup. As far as JSN and Charbonnet, it's kind of like Charbonnet you're holding on to especially if you have Ken Walker, David, because if anything were to happen to Walker, you have that guy who's immediately going to get all of the volume in that backfield.
I have that guy.
There you go.
I have that guy.
And then JSN, I'm kind of treating like Quentin Johnston right now.
Yeah.
He's super high value if one of the two guys above him were to go down. And if not, I'm waiting for him to get more acclimated into this offense.
Yep.
So I'm not starting him yet.
Lockett, DK shows though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure.
And then I'm watching the tight end usage from Seattle, because we saw a couple good back-to-back games out of Noah Fant. I want to see if he continues to be the primary tight end target, or if it goes back to just a muddled room with Will Dissly getting more targets this game.
Yep.
And I don't know if I could count on it yet, but it's something that I'm watching for a couple more games just to see if Noah Fant emerges as the tight end one in that room.
Yeah, and I think those are, you covered that well. I actually like Daniel Jones this week. I think he can have a very productive week, and
especially if Saquon doesn't play.
Yeah, if Saquon doesn't play, this is not nearly as tough a defense as the Niners. Look for Daniel Jones. I mean, he might try to create with his legs a little bit. We know he has that rushing capability, and with a quarterback, that's always
scared to get hit too.
Yeah, that's a huge upside with quarterbacks. So I mean, if you told me you were starting Daniel Jones and you didn't have the greatest QB room, I wouldn't hate you for it.
I actually want to check what they have his rushing line set at with Saquon missing.
I'm gonna guess like 24.5.
What do you think, David?
Does he?
He rushes. He's known to get on.
He runs.
Yeah, he runs.
I'm gonna say like 21.
It's gonna be 21. It's gonna be 30s.
Let me get there. It's all the way at the bottom because it's the Monday game. 34.5.
I knew it. I knew it was going to be 30s. I wouldn't take. And I don't like the over on that just because that's a solid amount of rush yards. But he very well could hit that over.
I mean, in the first 2 weeks, he had 5 last week against San Francisco.
Yeah.
Weeks 1 and 2, he had 43 against Dallas and 59 and a touchdown on the ground against Arizona. Mm-hmm. And with Saquon being out, I think we might see some of that Arizona Daniel Jones, or Daniel Jones from the Arizona game, more than we'll see the Daniel Jones San Francisco game.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you guys have anything else on that? Anything else on the games?
No. I think we're ready to roll into our last segment here.
All right. Here we're going to talk about guys that we would prefer to sit. I'm not absolutely going out of my way to sit these guys for others. If you don't have, for example, I have Alvin Kamara on here. If Alvin Kamara is your best running back, you're not going out and getting Chuba Hubbard to replace him with. You're starting Alvin Kamara. Mm-hmm. But if you have better options, we're just saying we'd prefer those options over these guys. And I'm going to lead it off with Dak Prescott. I don't like the matchup against the Patriots. Mm-hmm. Patriots have not been giving up too much through the air. I think Tua against them finished... Let me check this right now. because Raheem Mostert was the one who did a lot of the work in that game.
Yeah, he kind of carried the offense in that one a bit.
And we saw, like I said, Christian Gonzalez do a really good job with Tyreek Hill. Dak hasn't honestly performed this year at all either. They played the Cardinals, and the worst thing about it to me was when they played the Cardinals last week, they were down at the start of the second half, and he wasn't able to get he got 15.36 fantasy points in a game where they were forced to have to move the ball and pass the ball, and they just weren't able to.
Mm-hmm.
The first 3 weeks, 6.32 against the Giants. Granted, he didn't have to do anything that game. But when we look at this game, I think it might be a lot of the same, except he's not capable of doing what he wants to do more. And the Patriots defense is going to limit that. So I think we're going to see something more like week 1. I don't like it at all.
Yeah, and I'd agree with that. I think, there's definitely plenty of other QB options. I mean, I like a Brock Purdy. He's probably on the waiver wire. I like a Brock Purdy start over him just because of the favorable matchup. And that kind of takes me into...
Brock, Geno, and Russ are 3 quarterbacks that I'd easily start over Dak this week.
Yeah, 100%. And then my quarterback that I would sit this week, and this is if he plays, is Deshaun. If Deshaun does play, I do not like starting him this week. There were reports that he went out in practice yesterday, threw a single pass, and that was it. And his injury is on his throwing shoulder. He has said he will play, and honestly, I think he will. I do think if he says he's going to play, I think the Browns coaching staff will let him go out there. Will he finish the whole game? I don't know. And with an injury to his throwing shoulder, I think that fantasy value is going to take a hit. And that's
in a tough AFC North matchup.
Yeah, it's a divisional game, and honestly, if
these teams hate each other.
Yeah, and either way, if Deshaun plays, if you're an Amari Cooper owner like me, I'm starting Amari Cooper either way. But it can affect everyone on that Browns team. If he, for whatever reason, has to get pulled from the game, they're going to a rookie. DTR, he looked great in preseason, but his first game getting thrown in against Baltimore in a divisional rivalry, I mean, it's just tough. So, I mean, if you can pivot from Deshaun, 2 guys that we know have a safe week, a Geno, a Russ, a Brock Purdy, that you just know they're playing favorable matchups, they're going to get you a guaranteed, 15 points to play it safe. They're going to get you a 15-point week. I would pivot to that instead of rolling the dice on Deshaun.
Yeah, I mean, I'd say you could even expect a low 20s week out of Geno.
Yeah.
And that all ends up depending on whether or not Ken Walker gets the touchdowns in the red zone. But, I just think the more opportunity you have, you're giving yourself a better chance to win.
Yeah.
Who you got for the quarterback, David?
I don't really have anyone for the quarterback, but if you want to go to wide receivers, I got a couple actually.
Yeah, go ahead. Who you got?
Yeah, go ahead. Just say who you got.
For the wide receiver, my first one is actually going to be D-Hop against the Bengals. I know he might have got drafted mid 7, 8 round, maybe a little higher. But honestly, he has not performed like how we are used to seeing him perform. But also, we got to look that he also has Ryan Tannehill throwing him the ball.
Trash.
Last week alone,
I saw a cool little image today. Ryan Tannehill, Mike White, and Keenan Allen all have the same amount of passing touchdowns so far this year.
That's disgusting.
That's crazy.
That's terrible. What?
Because I was gonna say, because D-Hop, last week he had 7 targets and only 3 receptions last week with no touchdowns, and then weeks 1 and 2 he got 13 targets and then 5 targets the next week. Still no touchdowns from D-Hop this year. And they're playing against the Bengals, so it's just not looking like a good start for him, I would say, this week. Maybe low wide receiver 3, but I wouldn't count for too much from him.
I completely agree with you. I'd avoid it too. The Treylon Burks isn't going to be out there in this one, meaning he doesn't have anyone on the other side of the ball to draw any attention from that defense. So it's just, nothing looks good for D-Hop this week.
Yeah. And then actually, I did have George Pickens on my list, but he's coming off a decent game against the Raiders last week. You know, he got 6 targets for 75 yards, 4 receptions. But then I looked back at it, and then I realized that Houston has a pretty banged up secondary right now, so he might be a good flex, maybe wide receiver 3, low wide receiver 3. That's just another thing to look out for.
He's a guy I'd like over D-Hop, you know?
Yeah, for sure. I would like him over D-Hop, yeah.
He should have more opportunity in this game over D-Hop.
Yeah, I feel like he will too, especially because they who do they? Oh yeah, they play the Texans. I just said that, but and then another guy I would say that I would try to avoid, and I know probably some of you guys were kind of high on him, probably not so much this year, but last year. Not a wide receiver, but a tight end. Kyle Pitts against Jacksonville.
Mm-hmm.
He has yet again no TDs this year. He had 9 targets, which was a season high for him last week. 5 receptions from him. So, I mean, yeah, it was a season high for him. It's an upside, but for me personally, I wouldn't feel safe starting him. Just for me personally, just because he hasn't personally showed nothing. I mean, that he's worth, you know.
Yeah, and it's fair to say Kyle Pitts. It's just tough when the tight end, it's like we keep talking about it, the tight end landscape is just so shaky
ridiculous.
That if you don't have one of these top guys, you're just looking so thin, and it's almost a roll of the dice with, you know, who you're starting. And I mean, you know, my must-sit of the week is Dallas Goedert, who was being drafted, you know, tight end 5 or 6, but he's playing Washington. Washington's number 4 against tight ends. They're average through the first 3 games, they're giving up 3.7 receptions, 19.3 yards to tight ends. And Goedert just, this year he's taken a step back in his targets, and it's kind of weird because now the Eagles with DeAndre Swift have a running back that can, I mean, Miles Sanders had a great year last year, but DeAndre Swift has really given them this aspect that I don't think they've had yet, which is a guy that's breaking out, and he's giving you these 20, 30-yard carries, so they can rely more on the run.
We also have to remember the Eagles have a new offensive coordinator this year. Shane Steichen was there last year, and he's the head coach of the Colts this year, so that could be a big reason why Dallas Goedert's, you know, rolling offense has changed.
Yeah, because it has regressed a bit. We don't see Goedert getting the looks that he got the past season. You know, A.J. Brown and Devontae are the clear 2 targets there. And I mean, out the backfield, you know, you're getting some catches, Gainwell, Swift, whoever it is out the backfield. So, I mean, that's really why I had Goedert. It's tough with the tight end position. Again, there's only a couple guys that you must start. Other than that, I mean, almost a roll of the dice at this point.
Yeah, I mean, my tight end I mentioned a little earlier was Zach Ertz. Niners just don't give up much to tight ends, and I know it's probably a little tempting off a couple good weeks that he had, but I think this week is going to be a little more like last week for him. Not too much to say on that. Back on the wide receivers, I have Michael Thomas this week. One thing we haven't seen is Michael Thomas really playing a full game with Jameis Winston. And Michael Thomas, you know, has the nickname Slant Boy. He generally runs closer to the line of scrimmage. Jameis is a guy who likes to air the ball out, which for me, something that we can draw that comparison to is Alvin Kamara's never had, you know, when he played with Jameis last year, he did not have any good games. I think outside of a really huge, like 62-point game last year, Alvin Kamara didn't really have that well of a year. The quarterbacks he had Jameis doesn't throw to running backs. Jameis doesn't really like to throw short and intermediate. So that could hurt Michael Thomas this week. I think Chris Olave is going to eat. I think Rashid Shaheed, honestly, might finish better than Michael Thomas this week just because of Jameis Winston's style of play. Now, if Derek Carr is to play, Michael Thomas is a full go. That completely changes everything. I don't think Carr will be playing. He's questionable right now.
AC sprain in his throwing shoulder. I think he's going to miss.
I highly doubt. And that's why I have Michael Thomas on this list and Alvin Kamara on this list, both for the same reason. Alvin Kamara a little more because this is the first week of action we're seeing from him against a division rival. It's just nothing that I want to count on the dude's first week back. But, just Jameis changes everything when he steps in. It's a positive for Chris Olave, negative for Michael Thomas, Alvin Kamara.
Yeah, and that, staying in that game, I'm putting him on the must sit. I would still start him because you probably don't have a better option. I'm throwing Mike Evans on it just because this is going to be, we're probably going to see a boxing match more than we're going to see a football game between him and Marshawn Lattimore. We've seen it over and over and over. When they see each other, whether it's at Rayleigh's in the dairy section, whether it's at Six Flags on a roller coaster or on the football field, they're squaring up. It's going to happen. They're going to get into it. There's going to be at least one unsportsmanlike conduct for both of them through this game, one personal foul, whatever it is. Mike Evans, career average against the Saints, 7.3 fantasy points. And he's having a crazy year. He's obviously Baker's number one target. But I think this week specifically, Chris Godwin's probably going to finish as the wide receiver one. For whatever reason, Marshawn Lattimore, he clamps Mike Evans.
Every time. I got nothing to say to that. If you have Mike Evans,
you're probably starting him.
You don't have much. It is what it is.
Yeah.
You got to just hope for the best. But, it's definitely something to be wary of. And, if you got a guy in a better situation this week, go ahead. I'd feel so comfortable making that pivot. Like, if Mike Evans happens to go off against the Saints, cool. They play him again this year. Then I know that I can actually start Mike Evans against the Saints. If he doesn't, well, we've seen this story before. And the next time they play them, he will be in the same place on my bench.
Yeah. And
so it's pretty simple, man. But another guy I got, it's funny, I had George Pickens as well. More due to the fact that if the Steelers can successfully run the ball, that's just what teams do against. And for some, Trevor Lawrence wasn't able to get it going last week against Texans at home.
Yeah.
That just doesn't give me much confidence that Kenny Pickett will be able to.
Yeah.
George Pickens doesn't need too much to get it done. So kind of like David said, low-end wide receiver 3 flex. But I'm not excited to start him this week. A guy that I'm really worried about that I'm actually sitting is Christian Kirk, which might come as a surprise. But the Falcons' pass defense is ranked like 4th in the league right now.
AJ Terrell's a dog.
They've just been shutting it down.
Their D-line is crazy.
So that's just we've seen the lows from Christian Kirk. We have. And to me, thinking that it's going to be a positive week against a really good pass defense, I just don't see it in the cards. So I'm going for example, if you have Christian Kirk, Gabe Davis, I'm going Gabe Davis.
Yeah.
If you have Michael Thomas and Tutu Atwell, I'm going Tutu Atwell. Some of these you might be like, that's but it's the matchup, guys. That's the most important thing here. You got to look at the implied point totals of these games. If it's projected to be a really low scoring game and it's an offense that's going to struggle, you probably don't want to start your receiver in that game.
It's also a redemption week for Calvin Ridley, so look for the Jaguars to try to get him, involved.
Yeah, that's why I took Kirk over Ridley because I feel like, they went out and traded for Ridley. He had a good first half in the first game and has been silent since.
Yeah.
Talking about redemption, too. Not saying that you're going to sit him or anything, but I just got to say, my boy Derrick Henry is going to have a redemption week this week.
No. No.
I know they're playing the Bengals, but
For your sake, I hope so.
I think he's gonna have a better week this week.
But it's kind of hard to redeem yourself when a team knows you can only do one thing and you're not even doing that well.
Yeah.
So that.
But I got one more receiver, and when he went to this team, people thought, he was going to have that redemption year, and we haven't seen it so far, and that's Brandin Cooks with the Cowboys. Week 1 only played 59% of snaps, 4.2 fantasy points on 4 targets, 2 catches, 22 yards. Missed week 2, played week 3 against the Cardinals, played 80% of snaps. He got 7 targets, so that's something you're happy to see if you're a Brandin Cooks owner, but still only got 2 catches for 17 yards, 3.7 fantasy points. And those 2 games were against the Giants and the Cardinals. They are playing the Patriots this week. I am not starting Brandin Cooks. I know if you were going to, it would be like a flex spot. Do not do it. I am avoiding Brandin Cooks this week 100%.
Well, yeah, and you saw Michael Gallup get 6 targets last week, 92 yards and a touchdown. Or 7 targets, 6 catches, 92 yards and a touchdown. He's trending up and Cooks is trending down. Will that change? I don't know, but right now I don't want to take that risk. My final 2 guys are running backs on here, and I'm kind of on the opposite side of a lot of what I've seen on this, because a lot of people are saying, oh, Roschon Johnson, Khalil Herbert are a smash start this week. I think the opposite. I'm fading them because we saw in week 1 the Denver Broncos kind of sold out to stop the run, and they did. Josh Jacobs didn't produce, and if we take a look at it, there's no reason why they won't do the same thing this week against an offense that has absolutely no threat in the passing game. They know the only thing that they can do is probably run the ball. So I don't see there being much opportunity for, like, it's going to be the same situation that it was for Josh Jacobs week 1, and neither one of these 2 running backs are better than Josh Jacobs. So I don't see them getting it done this week.
Yeah, and, and I hate to stand up for the Broncos. Truly, it hurts me in the core to even compliment them in any way. The Broncos' defense is better than what we have seen through 3 weeks. They have their core players from last year. They have Randy Gregory. Their secondary is solid. And they're getting absolutely toasted. They deserve what they're ranked right now. The worst rush defense, 28th against pass. But when you have a week like this week against Justin Fields, it can either go one of 2 ways. It's Justin Fields redeeming himself, getting it through the air, things like that. Again, Khalil Herbert and Roschon, I do not have faith in them at all. Or the Broncos defense finally shows up, and they can really, like you said, hone in on the run, because Justin Fields hasn't shown an ability to get it to his pass catchers. He has DJ Moore, Darnell Mooney, Chase Claypool. He has a very solid receiving core, and he just hasn't been capable of getting them the ball. So I 100% agree with that sit. They did it to the Raiders. Josh Jacobs couldn't do anything. They made sure that he wasn't the one to beat them, because last year he single-handedly was the one both times, and they made sure that wasn't the case. And if you think Khalil Herbert's going to have success,
no, there's nothing showing me that the Broncos won't do the same exact thing this week. Yeah. And there's nothing that's shown me that the Bears can do anything to combat that.
Yeah. And I got one more guy. I got Rhamondre traveling to Dallas and playing the Cowboys. The thing with him that's kind of weird is his first 2 weeks were solid fantasy weeks, 14.9 fantasy points, 15 week 2. Then he had 7.2 against the Jets. His yards per carry through those 3 weeks are 2.08, 3.33, 3.11. He's been abysmal. The Patriots' offensive line has been horrendous. Yeah. And I don't see him having success running the ball against the Cowboys. As Schiff mentioned earlier, he obviously has that pass-catching ability. They don't have real threats in the wide receiver room, so maybe he can get those dump-off passes. Against the Jets, though, and it was kind of an ugly game where, the Patriots couldn't get it going through the air too much, and Rhamondre had 4 targets, 1 catch for 3 yards. So if you're a Rhamondre owner, you're probably starting him again, because running back depth is really hard to come by. But I do think he's going to have a very tough week against this Cowboys defense. I see the Patriots offense putting up, to be real, 17 points at the maximum. unless their defense comes through huge with a turnover and gets them the ball, super favorable position. But I think it's going to be a tough week for Rhamondre. Zeke, on the other hand, no, I'm not going to. Hey, but Zeke coming back to Dallas, that's all I'm saying.
It's going to be interesting to see him play against his former team, after all these years. So
yeah, we'll see what Zeke has in the tank. Rhamondre again, you're probably starting him just because running back depth is so hard to come by. But I do not like the matchup against Dallas.
No, I understand that. But yeah, I think that's about all we got for today, guys.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks for tuning in. I think we're going to be back Monday with a recap of all the games on Sunday, and then what time are we going to put that out? So I guess we'll just talk about any other injury updates before the Monday game, and then I'm not too sure.
We'll have Monday.
New for you guys.
We'll have Monday, yeah, and then Tuesday we'll have the Monday
fun.
recap. Yeah. No, appreciate you coming in, David. It's always good, having some of the friends hop on and talk some fantasy football with us. I mean,
yeah, it was cool.
Yeah, and I mean, as you guys know, we're just starting out. So if you guys have any suggestions, things you want to see, like I said, we're still trying to come up with some more new stuff. Just drop them in the comments. Let us know. We're open to suggestion. But once again, thank you guys for taking reps with the first team. See you guys Monday.
Yes,
Later.
sir.